Welcome back to the Preppy podcast. Thank you guys so much for listening. If you know me, you know that I love Mahjong, and I think it's safe to say a lot of you guys do too. It's such a fun preppy hobby. So I had to have Mahj the Magazine's Kathy on today for the podcast to learn all about her love for Mahjong, where that started, and her decision to start a magazine all around that. It was so fun. We even chatted about some Mahjong trends that she's seeing. I just really enjoyed this episode. She has so many wonderful stories and tips for getting started with Mahjong and so much more in between. So before we get started though with this interview, just a few reminders. You should join Club Preppy. Club Preppy is our monthly membership where we do at least one virtual event per month. Think of things like wine tastings or crafting or trend forecasting, all sorts of fun preppy activities done virtually and led by experts. You also get a little gift in the mail from me each month, things like Twillies or tote bags or exclusive notebooks. It's a wonderful community and I would love to have you guys there. Lastly, we have 2 Camp Preppies left for 2026. The next one being October in Kennebunkport. There are just a few tickets left there. It's going to be a beautiful time of year to head up north, check out the leaves, and just enjoy New England. Then we have our last one is going to be end of November. And that is at Barnsley Resort in Georgia, all holiday themed. I've wanted to do a camp around the holidays for so long, and this is it. So if you want information on any of those upcoming camps or Club Preppy, please go to thepreppypodcast.com, or you can always just send me a direct message on Instagram, my personal one, Patricia May Olson, or the Preppy Podcast. I'd love to chat with you and help you. All right, let's get into this week's episode. Okay, so why don't you first let everyone know who you are, where you live, and what you do?
My name is Kathy Wise. I live in Dallas, Texas, and I am the founder and editor of Mahj the Magazine, as well as the editorial director of D Magazine, the city magazine for Dallas.
Excellent. Well, I am thrilled to have you on. Offline, we were chatting a little bit about how I think I started following you on Instagram. I discovered the magazine, got it in my inbox, and then just have been enjoying it so much. And as someone who I work in PR full time, I appreciate a good print magazine. So I'm so excited to chat with you today.
Well, I love to hear that, Patricia, because I obviously love print magazines too.
Totally. So let's start at the beginning. Tell me a little bit about your childhood. Were you someone as a kid that was making their own magazines, or someone that was an entrepreneurial kid, selling things at the end of their driveway, or just creative? What was your childhood like?
I was absolutely not entrepreneurial. I was always the worst Girl Scout. I sold the least number of cookies. They were all to my mom. I hated anything in that realm scared me. I was terrible at it, but I was a writer from the beginning. I loved books. I read all the time. My mom was an English teacher and also an artist. I did not pick up the artist gene, but I've got things that I, wrote, was writing poems and kindergarten and on from there. So that's really where my love was, but not entrepreneurship at all. I listen to your podcast all the time, and I'm very impressed by all these people that had the business bug from the get go, because that was not.
That's so funny. It's funny though. I was listening to something else a few days ago, and I remember we used to have to sell wrapping paper for school. We had to sell pizzas for my gymnastics and dance classes. There was Girl Scouts. I'm why were they pushing us to sell so much as kids?
No, and I'm a little bit older than you, Patricia, but back now it just seems to have escalated because there's so many school activities that need to get funded. But back in my day, it was Girl Scout cookies and the occasional lemonade stand, but I was terrible at all of that stuff.
That's so funny. Well, I love how you enjoyed writing, though, even from a young age, it sounds. So then tell me, when it came time for college, where and what did you end up studying? Did you go into journalism or do something else and later find your way there?
So I went to a college in Ohio called Miami University, and they had it's a great setup. They had a side campus. It used to be a women's college that the university, it's a state college, and the university took on this beautiful Seattle campus that was literally just like across the street from Miami University, and they had to come up with who they were going to put out there, and they decided to make it a liberal arts college. And so kind of this hippie school that was all about, learning all kinds of things and being creative and engaging in, political issues, and it was just this fabulous, magical place. And then they needed to put somebody else out there with the hippies, and so they decided to put the architecture students out there. So it was and the architecture students, of course, like they're super intense, and they're like super like work hard, party hard. They were just like, they'd pull all nights all the time. And then, they're surrounded by all these like hippies that are writing poems and, going on marches and all of this stuff. So it was just this fabulous, fabulous place. But yeah, so during that time, I was totally an English major, and part of the Association for Women Students, and then ended up we had a magazine that we put out for that. And so, that was like a highlight of my college career, but never thought it would be an actual career. I just it was so much fun.
I love that story. That's so funny. I just had someone on the podcast a little bit ago, and they were thinking about architecture too to study. And then they said they went and toured a school, and they had cots. Like they didn't leave. The students, architecture students, like just stay there. And so then she was like, you know what? I'm going to do something else. And I was like, yeah, that's pretty intimidating.
It is. I mean, it's an intense program, and if I ever and just like such smart, interesting students that go into that, and most of them just like they were ones that knew from from day one that they wanted to be architects. But it was a really fun mix for college.
Definitely. Oh my gosh. Well, it sounds like you enjoyed yourself. And you were a little bit of a self-starter, it sounds like, too, with writing while you were in college. So after college, then, did you go right into journalism, or kind of what was your career journey to
I had a crazy career journey. As I said, my mom was an English teacher, but my dad was a lawyer, and he told me from the beginning that I was never going to make a living as a writer. So when I graduated from undergrad, it was kind of like, do I go get a master's in Russian literature? Do I join the Peace Corps, or do I go to law school? And so at the time, I thought it would be make the most sense to go to law school, because then I could go in the Peace Corps, or I could do something else. So that's where I started out, and ended up going into public interest law. So I worked for legal aid in a rural county in Ohio for several years before my wife took a job with American Airlines, and we ended up moving to Dallas. And so then kind of continued my legal career with the city attorney's office here in Dallas. But kind of knew I didn't want to do it forever, but enjoyed it and was good at it. And but then we had a really difficult case, and my mom died suddenly. She was 65 years old, and I was 35. And it was just one of those moments where you're kind of like, okay, what do I really want to do with the next 30 years of my life? And it was not practicing law. But I was in Dallas, Texas, and a friend was like, well, if you did something else, what would you want to do? And I said, funnily enough, I've always wanted to go into publishing, but like, I'm not moving to New York. So I don't see how this is even going to happen. But she was like, oh, well, I know somebody who has a magazine in town, and you guys should get together and meet each other. And so that's kind of what happened. I met Margaret Brown, who is the editor-in-chief of luxury Western lifestyle magazine based here. She took me under her wing and got me a job with another publishing company initially, and I learned the ropes there. And then she brought me into the magazine and taught me everything there is to know about magazines, and I haven't looked back.
Oh my gosh, I love that. Well, first of all, I'm so sorry about your mom. But it does sound like you said that she was an English teacher and stuff. So maybe her leaving like inspired that in you, and she kind of pushed you then to pursue this career that it sounds like you're a little bit more passionate about then, right?
Yes, absolutely.
And I feel like I hear that a lot with my husband's an attorney. And I think a lot of times attorneys do get a little burnt out and look for more of a creative outlet eventually down the line, right?
Yeah. And I think a lot of lawyers tend to, they have both that left brain, right brain thing. And so because so much of the job is logic and problem solving and all that kind of thing, but there's a real creative element to it as well. And it's been really funny for me, because I think ever since I've left the profession, so many people are always ask, do you regret it? Don't you miss it? Don't you miss being a lawyer? And the one thing that's really surprised me about it is that every single skill I learned as a lawyer, I use as a journalist and writer. So I absolutely don't regret going down that path. I think it's exactly, that's what got me to where I am today. But yeah, it's just a huge amount of crossover between what I do now and what lawyers do every day.
Yeah, I mean, you have to be a good writer to be a lawyer too. They write a ton, right?
Yeah.
No, that makes total sense. So now, where does Mahjong come into the picture? I think I read that you'd been playing for years. So tell me about like when you first got the Mahjong bug, how you learned, who taught you, that sort of thing.
So I learned years ago. I learned back in law school. My good friend from undergrad, her family lived near. I was going to law school at Ohio State, and her family lived in Columbus. So I would go over and have dinner with her family on weekends and hang out with them, and it was great when she was home on holidays. And her grandmother, Nilda, was a big Mahjong player, and I grew up in the Midwest. I'm a huge card player. I love games. But had never encountered Mahjong before. And so I was fascinated and I totally wanted to learn. And so Nilda, taught me, and I laugh now because the Mahjong instructor world, like it's just, everybody is so kind and so lovely, and they have cute little sayings and like rhyming phrases. And like, that's not how you learned back in the day. It was like you were thrown in the deep end of the pool, and if you screwed up, you were dead-handed on the spot. There was like no sympathy, no patience. But I love that. I love the abuse. I love the you had to keep up and you had to learn to play quick. And so I was kind of hooked, and that was 30 years ago. And so I've been playing off and on ever since then.
You were like way ahead of the trend. And I love how kind of all things go back to law school though, even. Like,
I know. It is. It's really funny. But yeah, so then there was a big issue during COVID around 2020 when the Mahjong line launched. There was like kind of at the crux of cancel culture and cultural awareness and Asian American anti-Asian American sentiment, and all of these things were kind of converging. And so when the Mahjong line launched with their tiles, there was this huge backlash about how dare they kind of do what they were doing and create these tiles that they were doing. And I became fascinated by the story. Having been a longtime Mahjong player and having come into the Mahjong world through the Jewish space, right? And that whole culture of the game and American Mahjong. And so I was fascinated by the tension, and so started digging in and thought that it might make a great story for D magazine. And at the time, the founders of the Mahjong line, Annie and Kate, who are amazing, weren't quite ready to go on the record because things were still so chaotic. So the story idea kind of died out. But during that time, I learned so much, more than I knew just as a player, about the history of the game and what was happening in the world and what was happening in the American Mahjong world and all of that. So I just kind of became obsessed with all of it, but couldn't really do a story. And so then fast forward a couple years, and I'm playing Mahjong in my best friend's pool, Sam Murphy. And we were playing around, and we're like, oh, we should do something with Mahjong, because it's just like insanely popular. Maybe we should do a cookbook or just do something fun. And so we were like, oh yeah, that would be so fun to do a cookbook. And then a couple days later, I'm getting ready for work, and I was suddenly like, you idiot, magazines much better than cookbooks. And so like this could be this incredible thing. And I just assumed that my boss was going to be like, okay, this is crazy, because magazines are a struggling industry with social
Yes.
media and the digital age and everything else. The heyday of print media is, sadly behind us. And a lot of print media companies are trying to figure out, what do magazines look like going forward, and do they have a place in this world, and what should their function be? And I obviously, because of my job, am a firm believer in magazines, and I think there's something special about having a finite, curated, physical thing that is not an infinite scroll, and is not, is not this endless thing that is not written by AI, that is something special and thoughtful. And I just felt that with Mahjong, when that light bulb went off, I was like, here's this tactile, in-person game, and it just felt like the natural fit. And there have been magazines in the past, right? Like there have been collector magazines and kind of those kinds of things, but not really a lifestyle magazine that touched on all the things I love about the game. So travel
Yes.
and food and entertaining and history and strategy and all of those pieces, putting it in one place. So after having all of these thoughts bouncing around in my head, I showed up in our D Magazine is a women-owned company, and it's actually a
Okay.
mother and daughter-owned magazine, wow, which is very unusual also in this world, in this space. It was founded by Wick Allison, and his wife, Christine Allison, is now runs things, and her daughter is the president. And they are just this amazing, super smart pair that have been in media from day one. And neither of whom played Mahjong. And so when I marched into Christine's office and was like, hey, I've got this idea that we should actually start a new magazine, and it should be all about Mahjong. I was expecting her to be like, yeah, great. But no. And she immediately was like, oh my God, I think there might be something really there. And then nobody else. I kept waiting for our CFO to tell me no, or somebody, or other. And it just never happened. So next thing I knew, we were off to the races.
Oh my gosh, I love that. And it makes so much sense because mahjong is something, you do with your hands, you play, it's tactile, it's strategy, and it's about taking time away from a computer screen and enjoying time with other people and community. And I feel like that makes so much sense then to have a magazine around that because they go hand in hand, right?
Right.
So then tell me kind of what the next steps were. Like once you had this idea, you got it approved. Like how long did it take to go from idea to having your first copy? Like what did that look like? It sounded like you had a vision from the start, but like getting it out. Tell me about that.
So the idea sprouted. It was probably about this time last year. It would have been July last year. And then, I kind of mapped out. I had the concept from the get-go that I wanted it to be organized around, inspired by seasons and wins. And so each issue kind of revolving around a place. And obviously being in Dallas, that was the natural place to start, especially since Dallas is currently kind of the epicenter of Mahjong, certainly American Mahjong and American Mahjong companies. I mean, there are dozens and dozens of women-owned mahjong companies that are coming out of the Dallas area, which is just astounding. I needed the first big thing I needed was a creative director to have as a partner to actually design and come up with the vision for the magazine. And so that was a hard one, and kind of thinking through what I wanted the magazine to be like. And in my head, I wanted it to kind of be the opposite of other magazines that I've worked on. I wanted it to have very few, if any, advertisements. I wanted it to have a flow, almost, I'm going to date myself again, but like a mixtape. Where the kind, where one thing flows into the next thing, and it's that if you can consume it in pieces, but if you consume it as a whole, it's an entirely different experience and an elevated experience, right? And so I needed somebody who was willing and interested in thinking outside of the box. And our creative director at D Magazine, Stephen Arevelos, who's amazingly talented, he was like, you should call Marshall McKinney, who is the founding creative director of Garden and Gun, who's just like, if you're in the magazine world, he's just an icon. And I was like,
Yeah.
Marshall's not going to take my call. And Stephen was like, no, you should really reach out and give him a call. And I was like, okay. So I did, and he immediately was like, great, let's set up a time to talk. And we got on this call, and his energy, like, I was so excited, and then he was responding to all of my energy, and he immediately was like spouting off all these ideas, and it was just this crazy synergy. And I remember we hung up the phone, and I immediately I literally laid down on the floor because I was so stunned at what had just happened. And Stephen was like, are you okay? What's happening? And I was like, no, I am just completely overwhelmed that, like, I think this is going to happen. And I think this is going to be amazing. And so, yeah, so then I think it was like the end of September that Marshall came on board. And then it was creating the brand. And I've never actually created a magazine brand from the ground up. And so that was a really, really incredible experience. And he did it with Garden and Gun. Another one where, at the time, so many magazines kind of resemble that magazine now, but when that first came out, it just broke the mold. It was this totally different thing. So that was in September. We got started pulling together what we wanted it to look like, and what the logo was going to be, and what the color scheme was going to be, and how we were going to put in content, and what the sections, were. And so that was just hugely exciting. And then our first issue came out in March of this year. So that's when we launched with the first spring issue for Dallas. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a really quick turnaround, especially like one thing to, create an issue in that time, but to build a brand, create something, and also put out a print physical issue that's quick. That's amazing. And I liked, one thing about that story is to take your chance, right? You reaching out to Marshall, you're like, I don't know. And he said, yes. So you have to reach out and try, because worst thing you could have said was no, right? So I love that, and that it worked out. That's amazing. Now I'd love to talk about what's inside the magazine, because I think like the photography is so beautiful. I love the thickness of the pages, and I think this is probably intentional, but it's like a collector's piece. There are some magazines that you toss because they're full of advertisements, or I don't know, they're just thin and flimsy, but this is beautiful. Like, you want to display it on your coffee table, you want to keep them, go back to them. So tell us, like, what's inside.
Well, good. That's the goal. We spent a lot of time picking paper and looking at paper stock and figuring out what was going to go on the cover and what was going to be inside. And all of that, our paper is sourced in the United States. We print in the United States out of Quad in Wisconsin, which is a big magazine publisher, but they do it on a special, call it a sheet fed press. So it's a small print run, which allows us to do even better quality inks and print process, which is incredible. But then, so each issue, because we're looking at a place, we kind of do a deep dive into, cool places to go and shop and eat and stuff that kind of relate to Mahjong. So there are a lot of hotels now and resorts that are doing special Mahjong events and Mahjong stores and those types of things. So we've always got that in the book. We always have a history component. We always have an entertaining and kind of recipe section, which, again, going back to my cookbook inspiration, I love to cook. And so that's something that I really enjoy. And that's ended up being one of my favorite pieces in each of these magazines, is we're able to kind of profile somebody. And as you know, for Mahjong, you need food that you can eat with your hands, that you don't have to stop, and, that it's not greasy and messy, and that you don't need a fork and a full plate set. But the stories of these women, give you an example. We're working on our New York issue right now, which is going to be for fall. And there's this an incredible chef, Carol Wynn, who's actually based in Dallas, Texas, which is how I originally knew about her. She's got a Michelin recognized restaurant here called Non. And then I heard that she was opening a second restaurant in New York. And I was like, oh, well, that could be a really incredible, tie-in for our New York issue. And so we interviewed her and had her come up with a menu for the issue. The restaurant is this gorgeous, it's a 2-story corner restaurant in the East Village, and it's just lovely, and the food is amazing. But when I was interviewing her for the story, I had no idea that her daughter, who lived in New York, had gotten ill, and Carol had been sending her care packages. And because her daughter was like, it's the one thing that makes me feel better. And then Carol was like, you know what? I can't just keep sending care packages and have her get this cold food. Like, I really want her to have, mom's cooking hot at her doorstep. So that's how she decided to open the New York restaurant, was to be able to cook for her daughter. And now her daughter is fully recovered, and I think she just ran a marathon. And so, but it was just this amazing story. And so that's one of the things that I love most about magazines, and Mahj the magazine is just, the stories are just astounding, and being able to dig in that and then share it with other people is just incredible.
Oh my gosh, what a heartwarming story. Now, obviously you have experience writing and in the magazine world, but being a founder is completely different. Like, what was the hardest part of that, about starting the magazine even today? Like, what would you say is the hardest part, most challenging for you? And then what's your favorite or the best part? I'm assuming it's sharing these stories, but you tell me.
Yeah, sharing the stories. It's I think with a startup, it's the volume. It's the which is also one of the greatest things. Like, once once we kind of opened the door and let people know that we were entering this space, the response was just so warm and incredible. And then the people that want to collaborate and tell their stories and be involved, that just snowballs. And so kind of figuring out how to manage all of that and keep up with it, but that's also the absolute blessing. And I don't know if for a number of your entrepreneurs, one of the things that's been astounding for me in the mahjong space is the like almost unconditional support across brands. I know we're not a direct competitor as a magazine, but we've done events and worked with a bunch of different people, and it is just amazing to me that everybody is looking to lift everybody else up, and sees that the more people are involved in mahjong and the more people are excited about the game, the better it is for everybody. And so I think there can't be that many entrepreneurial spaces where even competing brands are supportive of each other. And so that's was a very unexpected piece of starting this that I did not see coming.
Yeah, the community behind mahjong is incredible. It's wild. What's like a trend that you're currently seeing in mahjong right now? Like, for example, I don't even know what they're used for. We have a Camp Preppy coming up, and so Vail Mahjong's doing it. And so now apparently there's these little like objects that I don't know what we're using them for or anything. I've seen like people.
Yes, this is a Texas thing and a Southern thing. It was so funny because we had an event in New York. We were there for the New York Jewish Mahjong Festival last month. And so when we had a table there, and we had so much fun. But in the South, for you, I don't have one, got one downstairs. But for anytime you go to an event, if you win mahjong, the host will have little plastic trinkets, and so that you get a little plastic trinket so when you get Mahj, but then what happens is then people accumulate them, and a lot of times they're themed. And so, like if we do a Western one, we might have little horses, or we've got for our Charleston issue, we've got little pineapples. And so then people will accumulate. They'll even get little token trinket bags where then they collect all the trinkets. But then the funniest thing is you'll go to events or tournaments and stuff. And so some of the like, good players, if they want to intimidate other people, they'll like line up all their little trinkets on their rack just to show like that they won a lot. So it's a totally fun piece. But when we had them in New York, we had little pizzas and apples when we were in New York.
Okay.
And everybody would come by and they'd be like, what are those? And we'd be like, oh, they're, in this case, they're good luck trinkets because we're handing them out not for wins. But yes, that is a very, very Southern and especially Texas thing.
Okay, I'm thrilled you explained that because I was like, what are these? And I messaged her, I was like, what is this? And she's like, oh, I'll tell you all about it next week. And I'm like, I need to know. They look like, for people listening who aren't familiar, like almost, the coin, you put a coin in and you like turn it and you get a little prize as a kid. Like they look like they would come from that, like these little cutesy things. Yes. I don't know.
Yes.
So what other trends or like things like that are you seeing, would you say?
Other trends and so where you play, do people do the dice bowls? Do you see people with the dice holders?
Yeah,
so that's
beautiful.
Yeah, so that's obviously a big trend, and having the table lamps at the table. We're seeing a little bit of a shift. I think there's so many gorgeous creative sets out there that go with themes, and it might be wine country, or it could be gardens, or it could be tomatoes, or whatever it might be. But I think we're starting to see a trend and a return to more traditional sets, because like if it's not your own set, people that play a lot, if they're constantly playing with the creative sets, it takes a second to learn the tiles. And so people sometimes are getting frustrated with that. And so I'm seeing more brands kind of return to more of a straightforward design that's easily recognizable. But also, we got a piece coming up on Lauren DuPont and Low & Co. And it's the first time I've seen, a lot of people are doing tablecloths, but she's got these, they're gorgeous, almost like fitted. They kind of fit to the side of the table with a ruffle around the edge, but they're these beautiful floral designs, very preppy for anybody that's got a preppy table. Look up Low & Co. And so I think that's an interesting thing that we might see some more of. And also the tables now, there are a lot of people that are doing really amazing things with tables. The one that we've just, we got a sample of for La Maison Fête. They're doing a collaboration with Center and Spring, and it's a beautiful rattan portable table. And right now it's kind of a lower, sit on the floor kind of play table. But I think they're going to be coming out with a full-size standing one. But lots of stuff, lots of fun things coming in the table world.
I love that. I think a sit on the floor table sounds so fun to play Mahjong that way. I haven't seen that yet, but I love that idea. Now I'm curious, who inspires you? Like, where do you get inspiration?
Oh gosh, that's a good question. I think it's just, it's all like at this point, it's just always around me and it's always coming to me. Just, in the Mahjong space, most of the entrepreneurs are women, and they are all taking big swings and kind of starting from scratch in the space and doing really cool stuff. And so I'm constantly inspired by all of them and the beautiful products and designs that we come across. And I find constant inspiration from all of that. And then got to say, Marshall McKinney, my right-hand guy. He's always coming up with surprising stuff that gets me thinking and excited about other stuff.
Oh my gosh, how amazing. It is cool. Like, there's so many Mahjong brands out there that we mentioned, but I do think it's so great that there's so many creative ideas from all of them. Like, everyone's tiles are different, everyone's mats are different. Like, it's so fun to see how creative and like the different themes, the different designs, and the collaborations between people as well.
Patricia, what's your styles? Do you have a certain style set?
I have a lot. I have a couple sets. I have a couple from Oh My Mahjong. I have Bam Let's Mahjong, their holidays. I love the Christmas sets. Like, I love a fun theme like that. So their holiday set is a favorite. My friend Sunny from Tigre de Tartan, I love her mats. She collaborates with a lot of artists, and her mats are just so beautiful and detailed. So I think her when she has like bunnies playing tennis, and that's like a current favorite of mine. But yeah, I love the Oh My Mahjong, like their pearl tile set is one that I love right now, and I have it with that bunny set because the colors complement each other so nicely. So
Oh, I love that. I
yes.
love that. Yeah, that bunny
What
mat is
about
a
you?
really good preppy mat.
Yes, yes. What about you? What's like your current favorite right now? And I'm sure it changes all the time. And so even though you're saying your favorite, it's not like you're picking favorites. It's just like a set you're playing with
That's
right
right.
now.
That's right. So my standard at home set is I probably have three favorites right now. My
Yeah.
standard at home set is the Mahjong line, their classic line of tiles, which are more traditional. And for the Charleston issue, I had the it's a Low Country Life. Has this beautiful mat that's kind of inspired by rattan, and it has cranes, and it just goes beautifully together. So I'm obsessed with that. And then we got a sample from Brooklyn Mahjong for the New
Okay.
York issue, and their tiles are they're so much fun. They're these huge fat brown, they just like look like chunks of chocolate, and
Ooh.
so they feel amazing, and the colors are really interesting. But then their mats were all sold out, so then I ended up getting a mat from the Mahjong line. They have a new bandana mat that's like a Western brown bandana. It looks really cool, and so I've got that paired with the Brooklyn Mahjong tiles, which I'm excited about because we're going to be having our first Mahj the Mag retreat in Stevensville, Texas, in a week from tomorrow.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, and so I'm very excited about having that Western setup for that. But those are probably my two favorites right now.
Definitely. Well, I feel like Western and like bandana prints totally having a moment, not just in Mahjong, but like fashion and bags. I'm seeing it everywhere. Now, if you could, I always ask like if you could collaborate with anyone or if anyone could have your product, like who do you want it to be? So I'm almost thinking either who do you wish, like who would be your dream to have your magazine in their home? Or like, is there someone that you'd love to interview or you'd love to like feature down the line in the magazine? Like what would be a dream?
Well, I'd love to have Julia Roberts
Okay.
as an avid mahjong player. I would love to have Sarah Jessica Parker, avid mahjong player. I would love to have Michelle Yao. I think that would be absolutely incredible. And Samantha Bee, I think she's a big player. And Savannah Guthrie. Those would probably be on some of the tops on my list to have either, show up in my feed holding the magazine or be featured in the magazine. I think would be incredible.
Oh my gosh. Or could you imagine all of them playing with each other and against each other? Like
No,
that would be such
that would
a
be fabulous.
cool, like, yeah. Okay, well, we're putting it out in the universe. So now, since this is the Preppy podcast, I always ask everyone, what does Preppy mean to you? So how would you describe Preppy?
So I came of age. I'm a '70s baby, and so I grew up in the '80s. So that was prime preppy. That was a prime preppy time. I was not a cool kid, so I tended to, aspire to be like some of the preppier girls. But I had my little, J. Crew skirts and my whale ribbon belts and those kinds of things. But I think of it almost like classic Americana with sass, like that.
Yeah.
That it's the brighter colors and with the plaids and the pinks and greens and the all those fun things. But yeah, to me, it's kind of that mix of classic, but with a little bit of attitude and fun.
Yes, no, for sure. And I think a lot of people always say preppy is like having hobbies, it's appreciating the past, it's that sort of thing. And I think Mahjong goes along perfectly then with that, right?
Yeah.
And magazines. I mean, magazines, like we talked
Yes.
about,
Yes.
like this beautiful artifact, if you will. So totally preppy. Any like suggestions in terms of, is there a great recipe, because I know you love to cook and like we said the magazine features different recipes, is there like a go-to recipe if you're hosting mahjong, or like cocktail recipe that you would suggest people try or check out that's always a hit?
Oh, I personally I'm a huge gin and tonic person, and there's a bar in Dallas called the Mansion Bar that makes their own tonic, which then inspired me to start making my own tonic. So that is the drink at my house. But I'm also having a dinner party tonight, Mahj and dinner party tonight. And there's a this isn't actually in the magazine, but it's top of mind because I was getting ready to do it. But there's a recipe in the New York Times. It's called the Hurricane, and it's basically watermelon juice and elderflower liqueur and bourbon. And it's the best summer drink. It's just those three ingredients. I think there might be some lemon juice in it as well. But you don't even have to make simple syrup and anything else. So look, the New York Times cooking, it's the Hurricane. I think that's one of my favorites. Especially for summer, the summer heat.
Yes, yes. Okay, good one. So,
and it's a beautiful pink, which goes with all preppy things.
Oh, yes, for sure. Just like my background. My one more question is, any sneak peeks, like anything you're working on? I know you teased the next issue will be New York. Anything else you want to like tease or plug that people can look out for?
I will tease because this was an absolute unexpected surprise, but it'll be in our winter San Francisco issue, even though this doesn't take place in San Francisco. But while we were in New York for the New York Jewish Mahjong Festival, Greg Swain had reached out to me, and for those who don't know Greg, she is just this icon in the mahjong world who is a fountain of historical knowledge and one of the original collectors of tile sets. And so she, like, her knowledge of Asian art and the history of Chinese tiles and all of that, she's just a walking encyclopedia and a fascinating woman. And so she had reached out to us and said that we should stop by her home on the Upper East Side while we were in town for the conference. And so I was like, oh my God, yes, please. So we went into her home. She was so gracious, and she's got this beautiful apartment that they've lived in forever. And specially remodeled her dining room to showcase all of her antique sets. So she's got these, showcase glass shelves that are all lit, that are holding these incredible sets. And while we're there, and with our photographer, Elizabeth Lavin, who I also have to give props to because she's the one that makes all of these images look so good. But Greg's just pulling down sets and telling the stories, and Elizabeth's taking photographs, and it was just this magical moment. And so we're going to have an interview with Greg and showcase some of her just one of a kind historic mahjong sets. And so I'm super excited about that.
I can't wait to see that, because it sounds like it was so natural and like not super staged, not planned. So I'm sure like the images, the story, all of that's going to be beautiful.
Yeah, I'm really excited.
Okay, so final question is, where can people find you? Let them know where they can buy the magazine, where they can follow along on social media, anything like that.
Mahj.com is where you can buy the magazine. Subscriptions are open, and we've got single copy sales of our premier issue are also available there. As subscribers, you get invited to all sorts of exclusive events, including things like our Interstate and Retreat. So there's lots of stuff that kind of comes with the subscription. But you can also find us at Mahj the Mag on Instagram and Mahj the Mag on Facebook. And we have some videos. We haven't done a ton yet, but some videos, especially with modern mahjong, on Mahj the Mag for YouTube as well.
Oh, excellent. Perfect. Well, thank you so much, Kathy. This was such a joy chatting with you. I love talking all things mahjong and hearing how you started.
Oh, Patricia, this was an absolute treat. I love your podcast, and this was so special.
Thank you so much for listening to the Preppy podcast. I hope this put a little prep in your step for the day. Please subscribe, rate, and review on wherever you listen to your podcast, and follow along with @the Preppy Podcast on social media.